There are so many people out there prefer to stay single. What do you think the reason behind?
Guys are complaining that either it's too expensive, and if it's all about numbers game, the way that person talks, the way the person, you have any chemistry with. Most men, like 80% and more, are not actually getting any swipes. The absolute best, desirable, with showing their social proof and their financial stability. Now you see a decline in monogamous relationships, and there's a lot of profound struggles for people who have been married for a while. How do you maintain a good relationship?
Today, I'm joined by Sam Green, and we will be talking about relationship. Hi, Sam. It's such a great pleasure to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. You have a lovely, beautiful home. Yeah, it's good to be here, and looking forward to talking about some of the interesting things that's going on right now. So
Yes,
let's do
you're very welcome, Sam. So we talked a lot about relationships in the past.
Yeah.
And we always said, let's somehow record it. So I'm so delighted that we have got this opportunity today.
Sure. Get into some discussions and also talk about some really interesting data that actually exists in the marketplace right now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first question is around being single. There are so many people out there prefer to stay single. What do you think the reason behind?
Well, there are a number of factors. It could be the fact that you are just focused on your work. You're focused on your career, so you're not really looking to get into a relationship, or you're focused on your studies, which is perfectly fine. Plausible, and I think that's actually not a bad thing to do, because you have hyper focus on your work, and if you don't, then you have diluted focus, diluted outcome. So that's not actually a bad thing at all. There's another couple of reasons. There's factor that you have now conventional dating is done on dating apps, which is somewhat problematic, because data suggests that dating on dating apps is great for technology, because technology is used to actually get all that data onto a platform, whichever app you're using. And that works really well to get like hundreds and thousands of millions of people, right? The issue is that when it comes to intimate relationships and that much data, that doesn't go hand to hand, because if you read Dr. David Boss on evolutionary psychology, primate strategies, just simply not equipped to deal with million options. And this doesn't only apply to guys or girls. It applies in both categories. Neither does it apply to, someone who is highly desirable on a social media app like Instagram, or on a dating app, or you have people who may not be getting that much response rate. It applies to everyone. So that is a problem. And and it's quite interesting. I was talking to one of my friends a couple of weeks ago, and I suggested to her that one way you could potentially look to increase your your success rate when you're going on these dates is actually to do a FaceTime before actually committing to going and grabbing that coffee or grabbing the lunch or dinner. Reason being, and her response, as you can imagine, was like, that's not very romantic. But the problem is that you're using an app, which is technology on your phone, to actually set that date up or to find that person. Therefore, you're using another tech to actually just have a conversation with them before you commit to going out. And I'll tell you why that is actually a good strategy and would be recommended, because what problems are people facing right now when they're going on dates and they're not having much luck? Guys are complaining that either it's too expensive, and if it's all about numbers game, which is somewhat true, then it's very expensive, £400 or £500 meals, depending, some people drink, some people don't. But that can be quite expensive if you're doing a couple of times a week. Naturally, only certain social demographic from an economic standpoint is able to, venture into that space. So that restricts the options. Secondly, a lot of guys are also complaining about the fact that when the dates turn up, or when the opposite sex, females or anybody turns up on the date, they don't actually look like their profile pictures. That's another problem with the filters, and you can name it and you can imagine it. So that's the second problem. And then there are so many different reasons why that person could be off-putting. the way that person talks, the way the person, you have any chemistry, tonality, mutual interest. You're able to actually get to know that person a little bit better, much better than WhatsApp and then or a dating app chat and then a date. Because the preferred method of communication, number one would be face to face for sure, right? Number two would be FaceTime. That's why Zoom has just completely, blown up post COVID, even in a corporate setting. You're able to see the person, right? Number three is obviously a phone call. Number four is going to be text messages. Number five is going to be emails, and then, any kind of like a standard platform that you're communicating on. So all you're doing is you're increasing your chances to get to know that person a little bit better and have better optics before you actually say yes or no. Equally, women are having a lot of issues on dating apps because when we're looking at the data, what a lot of women are suggesting and complaining about is the fact that guys lie about their height. It's very, very common. So if they're 5'10", they would say they're 6'1" or something like that. Guys lie about their age. So, and what both sides are hoping for is when they actually meet, the personality and the smell and everything else, what you want to be doing is being completely honest, saving yourself a lot of time, a lot of hassle, and increasing your chances. So I think that's causing a lot of issues. I think number three, and this is in my opinion, is the biggest problem right now, is the number of options people have. So, and I'll give you an example: decent looking, financially stable, and also respectable, single, and basically a nice person. Those are kind of things that women are looking for. For men, it's not that detailed, aesthetically pleasing, and basically single, and also has good value structure depending on their culture. Culture is really crucial, regardless of what culture that is. So I think you're able to dive into that a lot deeper on FaceTime before going on any physical dates, right? Especially if you don't have their social media, because you can actually tell a bit more about the person based on their social media. I've had friends who have said yes to dates. They look at the girl's Instagram and they're like, absolutely no way on the face of it, because you have like a couple of 100,000 followers, and then you have like, feeling cute bikini pictures every 2 seconds, and hundreds and thousands of guys are liking those pictures, commenting. So that person is naturally out for external validation, which is not a great sign for someone who is looking to be in a long-term monogamous relationship. So that's an issue. So, but when I say that the main number one problem is a supply and demand issue, just imagine about 20 years ago or 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, you had a lot less options in terms of dating, and it was a bit more organic than what it is today. So what I mean by that is you had to go into the gym, you had to go into a bar or a club or social gatherings, friends, networking events, and that's where you tend to find your partner, or introduced by someone in a family friend structure. As our society's gone more isolated and the rise of social media, people are more and more relying on technology, on our smartphones, to actually find that suitable person. And this is a direct correlation now. You see a decline in monogamous relationships. You see a decline in people's desirability to even be in a relationship, because the narrative is, I don't need a man. Where men are saying, why to be with one when I can be with 20? She's going to take half my stuff. So starting off points are not that good. And naturally, I'm not talking about the exceptions here. There are exceptions, but I'm talking about what exists in a general terms right now. Majority of the people fall in this category who are dating, and the rule is not made by exception. So that's where the problem is. And just imagine like a kid going into a candy shop. I normally give this example. A kid walks into a candy shop and he's got 3 flavors to choose from. He's probably going to try 2, walk out with 1. Now the same kid walks into the shop and he's got 500 flavors to choose from, and he tries 20, satiated his appetite completely, and walks out with none. That's a very good analogy and a comparable as to what's happening with supply and demand. It's also quite crazy because you have data suggests that 85 to 90% of the women don't actually click on like swipe right to say yes, maybe starting a conversation with most men, like 80% and more, are not actually getting any swipes. On some apps, even 95%, they're not getting any swipes. So that means majority of the guys, they don't get any swipes. And a very small pool of guys who look like the absolute best, desirable, with like literally showing their social proof and their financial stability. And I would say it's not even about stability, it's about extravagance. Once you have demonstrated that, then women are like, okay, I'm going to go for that. And the problem is that those 4 or 5% of the men on dating pool, they are getting everything. And equally, the same problem applies to men because they are swiping for like the hottest 10% of the women. And that also creates equally a big problem because 90% of the women are not actually capitalizing or maximizing for a good guy who's got the right value structure, right culture, kind person. And yes, he might not be a straight stud or 10 out of 10 with a ripped six pack, but he's perfect for a long-term monogamous relationship who's going to actually look after you, look after your family. So a lot of those guys are actually not getting any traction. So I think those three combined is a perfect storm of what we're seeing in our society right now, in my approximation, where the relationships are suffering.
So does it mean that now both parties have got high expectations? They have high standards that the girl or guy should be this kind of status, financial, in terms of looks and everything. So they are actually aiming for high, but availability of those high kind of value boys and girls are limited.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what I was saying, that that's a massive problem, because even if you look at just the social economic level, just one measure from men is the baseline of the desirability from a financial earning standpoint is £100,000 or about $120,000, which I completely agree with. I understand why that is, because by the time you paid your taxes and you paid your mortgage or rent and an okay car, nothing extravagant, and then you've just, living cost is through the roof right now. By the time you've done those basics, you're actually left with not that much disposable income, maybe just 1 or 2 holidays max, nothing extravagant. So I think that's a very reasonable ask. But being honest and being true about what the earning power is, only 4% of men earn more than £100,000 and $120,000. Less than 4%. So if only 4% of the guys are in that income bracket, and you have 100% of the dating pool of women going for that, just on that one thing. Remember, we haven't even talked about the fact who's got the right values, who wants to be monogamous, who is a kind person, who looks really good too, and who's tall, because these are some of the basic things. Because to men, it's the face, it's women's face. And to women, equally important is man's height. So you put these two together, and all of a sudden, you combine the rest of the desirability factors, you're literally left with such a small pool. Naturally, on top of that, you have, by the time you actually add some of the other factors like culture, religion for a lot of people, family structures, values, demographics, logistical desirability.
The thing is, Sam, I personally have never used dating apps.
Yeah.
And every relationship I had happened naturally. I just bumped into my future partner, and that was kind of more natural and organic way. Also, we took time to get to know each other, not just jump into any conclusion, but just to get to know whether we can trust each other, whether we share similar values, whether we are honest people, how we care for each other. And that's why it was more of a natural thing. So do you think that is still a possibility for people to bump into each other in real life rather than relying on apps?
Oh, huge possibilities, but those are exceptions. And that's the problem, that the rule is not made for exceptions, that the data is pulled from majority. And that's unfortunately around 95% people. That's why you would see why a lot of young men are actually, they're not even interested to date. They're not even looking for girls, or guys, girls are like, I'm more attracted to someone in his 30s because he's well established. So it's a different dynamic now. So yeah, there's like, if I saw someone, and I know a lot of guys who actually don't use dating apps, and they have great success in terms of getting into relationships. I've seen a lot of my friends. I've done this in the past, where I've done this myself, where I would approach someone if I thought that person was attractive and kind of like had the pull, or I wanted to have a conversation, then yeah, absolutely. So there are absolutely people out there who are staying away from dating apps, staying away from dating people on Instagram, for sure. That would be most definitely my strategy. I would highly encourage people to do that, because not only do you have 100% tools available to you, you have your talking, tonality, your eye contact is incredibly crucial. The way you smell, the way you are, the way you're dressed, everything. You have 100% power in that dynamic, instead of messaging someone on Instagram, or doing anything on your dating app. So I think you just have such much better, and also I think you have to be somewhat realistic about the whole thing to say, oh, what is the worst outcomes? A lot of people don't actually realize they have a fear factor, right? That what's going to happen if I approach this girl at the gym? Oh, what's going to happen if I approach this guy? Anything like that, you know?
So it's a confidence issue as well, yeah? If you
It's a
cannot just
rejection.
have a
Yeah.
conversation with a stranger, then chances are even slimmer, isn't it? Because we still go out and about, we still meet people, in real life as well, and you talk to strangers, because app is almost like a advertisement of yourself, isn't it? I am so and so, and I am such and such, which is almost feels like you are part of some kind of a commodity. Yeah.
And I see a reason for it. There are people who are very successful on dating apps. So I'm not negating that completely. I think if you are looking, if you're in a dating capacity, if you are looking for someone, I would say do both. I think you should do dating apps, and I think you should basically go out and meet people. I think you should do both, but I wouldn't just stick to one, because it really truly does depend if you are actually looking to date to be with someone, date to marry, or to date, or date to date just for one night. You know, there are three different categories. So it just purely depends on what you're looking for. And I think your strategy should be that it is numbers game. If you are serious about it, then just like work, just like sometimes if you're in a business which is the strategy is to drive as many clients into the business, for example. The idea would be to make as many sales calls, right, with the right script, right strategy, right protocol, and then that would lead to uh, a conversion rate, and that will lead to your customers that you sign up. It's no different. So you basically, first of all, I would say, as much according to my opinion, what I would think, and this applies to dating and everything else, know what you want. Once you have kind of like, you are crystal clear on knowing what you want, and I wouldn't be too sure about the aesthetics, because looks are just one category. So I would say you can be flexible on that. Not too flexible, because you got to be attracted to your other half, in my opinion. Then you dig in the rest. And then if you do end up getting into a relationship which may not be correct for you for any reason, then you come out of that, and that's totally okay too. I think a fair factor is that, what if I approach this person? That person is really aesthetically pleasing, for example. So I don't know, if I'm going to get told you know, to go away or something like that. That's a fear that it's valid, and a lot of people have it, but rightfully so. A lot of really good looking people, they actually don't get approached because they are intimidating. So for that reason, I mean, if
Too powerful, yeah?
well,
Too confident and too successful.
I'm thinking about it from, like, someone that you've seen at the gym, and that person is hyper attractive. There is absolutely nothing wrong after their workout, just saying, hey, how's it going? Haven't seen you around, that kind of thing. I mean, it's not creepy. It's not giving you some kind of script that you have to say, just, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you around, or something, whatever you feel comfortable with. There's nothing wrong with that. And if that person is interested, guy or girl, they're going to naturally reciprocate. Now, some guys can take this too far at the gym where they're literally just harassing the hell out of you whilst you're training. And girls or guys, most guys who are serious about training, most girls who are serious about training, they don't go to the gym for the guys to drool all over them. That's not why they're there. They're there to work out, let them finish their workout. Afterwards, if you catch them, then go and have a chat, for sure. But all of these are semantics. It's very small points. But combining this together, I think that has a very good success rate, in my opinion, for anyone who is actually looking to date.
So what dating apps do you know, Sam?
Well, I was actually involved in financial modeling of my friend who is launching a dating app. So I was just doing the financial modeling side of it. But I did manage to see data across like 11 different dating apps, and that was across UK, Europe, and United States. And I managed to see the statistics and analytics on both men and women, the click rates, the response rates, what kind of things women are optimizing for, what kind of things guys are looking for. So, and that was a scary statistic and data. So
What was scary about?
the issue is that what most women are looking for, maybe subconsciously, because everyone is just hyper dialed into their social media like Instagram, you are seeing, say, collectively, probably about, say, a couple of thousand, if not more, people of opposite sex that you feel like they are quite, attractive or something. There's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. Everyone has that impulse as a healthy person. But what that is doing is something called social neural conditioning. And when you're consuming so much data, especially by looking at the opposite sex and what cars they drive, what yachts they have, what holidays they go to, what they wear, watches, and their experiences, their lifestyle. And you can literally combine all of that, actually triggers a subconscious thought process through your neural conditioning, which is based on social input into your brain. And when you're looking at the results of our life, you can literally just reverse engineer the whole thing back to your thoughts, back to your thought process. But thoughts are actually, there's a precursor to thoughts, which is our proximity to either books, to the social media that we watch, things that we don't watch, things that we don't read, people that we communicate with, our friends, our family, all of that is going into your brain, either neutral, positive, or negative, right? And then here's the issue. When you're consuming so much data of perfection on Instagram, for example, you now have triggered your subconscious thought process that that's the benchmark of what I should be looking for. Because I am, say, I fit in a certain demographic, and I'm hyper desirable based on what response I get, right? I'm talking like someone like a girl who's aesthetically very super pleasing, right? She will get like thousands and thousands of guys to like her picture, DM her, and everything else. The issue then becomes is they are in their mind, they already know that I am hyper desirable, right? You combine that with the data they're consuming, which is now becoming a part of your thought process, right? That I can get ticks, I can get this, right? Across thousands of profiles. That thought process is then triggering a set of behaviors. Those behaviors are going to trigger your actions, what you look for and what you don't look for, what you accept, what you don't accept. And those actions are going to lead to results. So sometimes it's not actually a bad practice for people to dive into something I call a metacognition, just a fancy term for thinking about what you're thinking about and really taking an account of exactly what are you thinking about as many times in a day as possible. Because if you're consuming things which is constantly resetting that baseline benchmark for a guy or a girl that you're looking for, you may need to actually reset that to realistic, because social media is not real life. It's just a trailer of someone's life, the best bits of someone's life. And there are like millions of examples of this.
So I was thinking prior to our podcast about marriage and relationships. And if we go back to our parents and grandparents, they were married once. They stayed in a relationship for the rest of their lives. And that was it. But now average person has got, several relationships or even marriages and children from different marriages. And do you think it was because of the advancement of our lives that we live better, we are more financially independent as a woman or man, which gives us more choices so we can actually exit the relationship when we're not happy. So we're not going to just put up with any kind of nonsense or things we don't want in that relationship. Do you think our parents and grandparents were more patient and they had us?
It's not a simple question to answer because there are so many different layers to this, and I'll explain. Number one is the fact that our grandparents, they had a very different mindset majority of the times. They went through much tougher lifestyle, much tougher choices, much tougher upbringing, much less convenient options that we have now, right? Now we want anything, it's a swipe away,
Yes.
right? So the behaviors were very different. They also had they had a viewpoint that if something's broken, let's fix it, make it work. So that behavior difference is something that's missing from today's society and culture. That's number one. Number two is people tend to be getting in relationships and long-term relationships a lot later in life, which is fine. And it does to a lot of people. But what it does, it just makes you embed your preferences in a lot more detailed fashion. So for example, I personally had, say, probably about 5 non-negotiables when I was 25, right? I have like 50 now, right? So it's about what you accept when you get to a certain point, because you're much more settled into your life. People who are doing really well financially, they drive a nice car, they have got great links into amazing social places, they have good circle of friends, they look good because of the aesthetic, medical advancement and lifestyle choices. They don't need to date, right? Now, they may want to date, and that's a different story, but they don't need to. And your standards are very, very different. Expectations are really high. Someone who basically matches my non-negotiable, someone who fits in with my lifestyle. So that goes up by default tenfold because now you have a lot different requirements. And that's another reason why people are getting into gig relationships a lot. And gig relationships is like getting into a relationship for like 2 months, monogamous relationship and out, 6 months and then out, maybe a month, monogamous relationship and out. That's happening a lot because the non-negotiables are not working for people. That again, there are exceptions, but that does not apply, as a blanket to the whole dating demographic right now. I think so. Those two things, I think, are playing a big part. I think the social comparison, social media, it is a monster of a problem when it comes to dating dynamics, because there's constant comparison. There's constant comparison, not only as to the guys that you're watching as a female or the girls that you're watching as a male, but what attention you get. So, for example, for me, if I'm getting attention from, like, I put up some silly post of me posing and talking some garbage, or I'm standing next to like a car or something like that, whatever. The attention that I'm going to get from that, just like a picture, it's going to be profound. So it's going to be hundreds, sometimes thousands of girls liking that picture, right? What that does to me, if I'm not mindful of this, is that shows me all that I can get, right? All of that is available. Now, there are guys in a capacity who are getting millions of likes for putting one topless picture up. But girls get this 10 times more, right? So it's not only that you're comparing your potential of dating a guy or a girl, you're also now comparing how you're treated based on how you act. So both sides are a problem. That's why I think Third problem is the social media, which is a huge factor to why dating is going down the hill. What other factors are there? I think, yeah, women are working a lot more. They're getting into positions a lot more. Their earning capacity has gone up. Their schooling has gone up. The data would suggest that women are getting into top schools, universities, and actually finishing it a lot more than men are. And that obviously gives them the power to compare to our grandparents, because another thing, just to be fair to the historic relationships, is, yeah, they made things work, but we don't know if they were super happy or not, all of them, right? Majority of the times, yes. If you stay together with someone for 60 years, you learn to make things work. But data would also suggest that the best way to actually spend your life, even from longevity point of view, from health wellness point of view, is actually to be in a monogamous long-term relationship, because of the simple, like, a chemical secretion that you would have when you sleep with someone. Oxytocin when you hold someone's hand or when you hug them. This is a basic human need. And that's why we're herd animals. That's why we need to feel that love. We need to feel that connection. Whether your love language is like touch or not, it's irrelevant. We produce oxytocin when we actually have a human touch to our skin. And that's why when you sleep with someone, actually sleep with someone, with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, your biomarkers are so much better from health point of view, because you have higher level of oxytocin release, melatonin, serotonin release. Your growth factors are so much better at nighttime. You have higher levels of testosterone release, both for men and women, growth hormone release. And these are absolutely essential for long-term longevity and health. So yeah, so yeah, I would say those are the core differences compared to our previous generations.
So that is actually quite interesting, because what will happen to our children is unknown, isn't it? Because they are growing during this digital boom where everything is online. So if they are looking for that attention online, or they have peer pressure, then they are not that confident. It means their mental health is going to suffer, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, it just purely depends on what generation are we referring to. Because if we're talking about the generation like right
20s,
and they
they haven't got much money, yeah. They're probably just came out of university. They got their first job,
sure.
but they go on social media, see all this flashing with luxury stuff, and then
Yeah.
they cannot afford any of those, and they feel really depressed because they want to spend now, they want to enjoy now, but they don't have that ability to do it.
Yeah, I think it does come down to your upbringing as well. So, what kind of exposure are parents giving their children to social media? But not only that, like, you can't strip away all the social media platforms from children, because one way or another they're going to find a way, right? Especially if all their friends are on it. How I'm planning on raising my son, who is luckily 5 years old right now,
Yeah.
is is to is to is to implement and inject and so much good value structure that he understands when I'm suggesting something or when I'm asking him to do something, and also leading by example. Because when it comes to children, I think it's more, do what you want your kids to do instead of, do what I tell you to do mentality. Because if you tell them to do something and you're not a good model of that, if you as a role model is completely broken, and then you're telling your child to do something, like, even smallest example, like go to the gym or be healthy and X, Y, and Z. But if my son turns around and looks at me, munching on like donuts every day and just completely out of shape, he can quite easily, as an intellectual, question that, yeah, but you're out of shape. Why should I do it if you don't do it? So I think being a good role model in relationship capacity and in life is very, very crucial for children. So I think anyone who's dating, they should be aware of that. And anyone who's dating with children, they should really, really be focused on what kind of people are they actually bringing into their life, because the children will inevitably be exposed to that person. And most reasonable parents already are aware of it. And if they're not, then they should be. So yeah, when we're looking at the generations past that, I'm quite an optimist about it. So when we're looking at children who are being born right now, or children who are 5, 6, 7 years old, I'm quite optimistic to actually see how their brains are developing. And I personally think there's always a U curve in everything. So right now, or the past like 3, 4 years, and currently, and probably for another couple of years, we're going through the downside of that U curve, where everyone is just like broken in relationships, struggling to find everyone because the expectation is here and the real is like down here. So your relationship probably should be around here somewhere, your relationship expectation, but that's broken at the moment. So hence why the society is struggling, and more people are being pushed towards, single lifestyles. And regardless of how many, girls you have 10 girlfriends, and you're going out on holidays with them, and you're going out to clubs or bars or shisha lounge or something. It's not the same thing, because 10 years down the line, when you keep doing all this garbage, 10 years down the line, you're going to be on your own. And all these bells and whistles that your friends are encouraging you to do are going to disappear. I'm not saying to just pause all your friendships, but that's another massive problem in our society that I see, that who is your proximity? Who is putting either gold nuggets into your brain or garbage into your brain? Both applies for men and women. If your goal is to end up exactly like your best friends, then excellent. But if your goal is not to be anything like your best friends or the people that you spend time with, get rid of them. Family, friends, get rid. You can love people from far, and that's totally fine. Because from what I understand, we're only here once, right? So we might as well just give ourselves the best chance to be successful in relationships, in life, in business. Otherwise, what's the point? There's so many people that I used to speak to on a daily basis. Every year, end of the year, I would reevaluate my relationships, and I would look to either change the dynamics of those relationships or just not have that person present in my life, because that person or those people are directly going to correlate and add to your outcome, because that's exactly where they're going. So just be mindful of that. I think that's super, super crucial. I see a lot of guys and girls right now. So they would be hanging around with a bunch of losers as guys, drinking, partying, clubbing, and X, Y, and Z, not progressive, not growth prone, kind of know what they want, but have no idea how to get there, doing 60 things at the same time, from a professional capacity, therefore doing nothing in a professional capacity. So, and then you have all those people around you. Where do you think you're going to end up, mentally speaking? Recently I had this realization that I can't connect with people who are not readers, who don't read books. And I'm not saying that I'm the most well-read person, but I read most days, and I reread what I really like, because I want to be a good book doer rather than a good book reader. And the issue is that so this is quite interesting, because when it comes to books, a lot of people, they hate books. The reason why they don't like books is because it sends them back to high school or school days, right? Because we were told by our teachers that we didn't really like majority of the time. You have to read, you have to do your homework. So the affiliation with books normally tend to be from the people who don't like to read, is that, and they don't even know it. But when you read a good book, they are written by some of the best people on the planet. Whether you're looking in the field of psychology, evolutionary biology, where you're looking in the field of anything of your interest, you're able to literally read in a week someone's life work and the best practices modeling. So I would say, it gives you a lot of perspective, and perspective is very, very crucial, because Even when you're going through some difficult situation, if you lean into books with those kind of experiences, those kind of people who have had those kind of situations, like, I had something which was relatively scary a couple of years back from health point of view. And at that time, I made a list of a couple of books that I started reading and massively helped me. And one book that comes to mind is Man's Search for Meaning from Viktor Frankl. And it talks about, and he's a psychologist and Nazi camp. It was just awful to read exactly what he was going through and what kind of behavioral things he needed to implement just to survive one more day, one more hour. And it's a phenomenal read. So anytime you think that you got it bad, you should read some of the books and you get a lot of perspective from that. And then you're like, my life is actually really good. So,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. It's like Dale Carnegie said, show me 5 people and I'll tell you who you are, isn't it?
Yeah. And unfortunately, I completely agree with that. And unfortunately, I don't like the fact how commonly that phrase is used because I feel like it's said in, tongue in cheek and it's kind of lost its value. But it's absolutely true. And you should really be making a list of 5, 6, 7 people that you're spending say, across a month, 1 month, past 1 month. Look at the 5, 6 people that you have spent most of your time with. Actually see exactly where those people are going. And how can you tell where those people are going? The easiest way of establishing where this person is going is by historic data. Because that's the only way. If you want to establish where the commodity is going, if you want to see where the stock is going, if you want to know where the person is going, if you want to see where the relationship going, if you want to see that person will cheat again or not, if you want to basically establish anything in life, you have no way of establishing what happens tomorrow with that person or with that situation apart from historical data. So you look at the historical data, you look at that person's historical data, say past like 5 years, and you will establish, because humans are pattern recognition machines. Some are way better than the rest, but you establish that pattern and you'll be able to establish if that person is growth prone, if that person is going somewhere where you would ideally like to see yourself. If that person isn't, and those people are not, or they're going somewhere negative, then you need to take accountability of getting that people out of your life if you want your life to go in a different direction to them. You might actually have people around you who are absolutely amazing. And those people are your dream. In that case, you need to basically stay as close to them as possible. But if they're not, you need to reevaluate and change your circle. And I would even go as far as saying that, we are social creatures, absolutely. But it's absolutely critical to get the wrong person out of your life, even if you don't have the right one to let in. Because the wrong person is like cancer, corroding your behavior. It's creating nothing but stress, bad behaviors, bad proximity, bad stuff that's contributing to your thought process, which is inevitably, as I've said, thoughts, behaviors, actions, results are going to trigger all of that in your lifestyle. So just cut that person out. And if they are someone so close, like family or best friend, learn to love them from far.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But a lot of people don't really actually sit back and, look at who are they spending the most of their time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we are just on autopilot. We are doing every day whatever is in front of us. So they can't really see what they are actually doing, because the most difficult thing you have to face is self-evaluating yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, I see the other side. I understand why people find it difficult. They want to be nice, right? You want to be nice to people. You want to be nice to all your friends. You want to be nice to, but you can still be nice about not spending time with them, right? Because if you're not nice to you and you're not nice to the person who doesn't actually add anything positive in your life, then what are you doing? If you're, they're like that person is like your navigator. You have 5 people, and those 5 people become your sat nav in your car, right?
Yes.
And that sat nav is really, really crucial. So you either take control of it, put the right direction in there to where you want to go with the right people. Otherwise, the wrong people are going to keep driving you in the wrong directions. So it's completely up to you.
So going back to relationships, I know so many girls in their office, they're quite successful.
Yeah.
They are very kind and nice people, like you mentioned earlier,
Sure.
but they happen to be still single. So what I was thinking is that this is not only they're single and not in a relationship, but also their biological clock is actually ticking fast.
Sure.
So I've heard a few of them talking about freezing their eggs for the future. What do you think about it? Do you think it's a good thing?
I know it's very expensive, so if you can afford it, yeah, absolutely. Why not? It's your body, your choice. You should be able to do it. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's something positive because you're still potentially looking to become a mother in future. I think it's a very special thing from what I establish, speaking to the mothers around me. So I would say absolutely nothing wrong with that. So you should do it. It's definitely a preferred option if you don't have children and you're still in a situation where you are still looking to be with someone at some point. 100%, there's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, I mean, yeah, when there are going to be loads of women and there is who are still single. And I think it's what I mentioned. I think those 2 things are going to play a massive part to their dating potential, which is that you're incredibly set in your ways. So your standards as to what your non-negotiables are very high. That could be one factor.
Yes.
Another factor, which a lot of women don't like to admit, and this is unfortunately true, because I can tell you from reading the data, is the type of guys that they are going for, which are these hyper successful, alpha, great looking guys, they now have global dating options.
Yes.
So they can go to, one of the countries.
Monaco or whatever, yeah.
Well, Monaco is like a very expensive option, but you can go to another place like in the world, Moldova or somewhere like that, where you can potentially
Pick and choose.
get a wife like who is a 22-year-old, a perfect housewife. So again, you have to be realistic as to. I'm not saying self-sabotage and don't go for someone that you're not attracted to or who doesn't matches your value structure, but you have to understand that there are certain type of guys in that age demographic, because guys also mature later from career point of view as well. So most men, they tend to hit financial stability, they 35 onwards. Yeah, there are loads of exceptions, but 35 onwards. So when guys are in their early 40s, they are set majority of the time, people who are actually doing well with their career, right? So now the resource options opened up massively, and a lot more guys now are actually looking out for themselves as well. So I'll give you an example, like a 50-year-old guy from like 10 years ago or 20 years ago is not the same guy from today. So you compare a 50-year-old hyper successful guy who's dialed into all his biohacking and everything else to someone 20 years ago. It's like, it's like 2 generations.
Yes.
Right. So for that reason, I think guys have a lot more options. So that biological clock that you mentioned is to be taken into account. And I do have a lot of friends who are in that category of like, in their 40s and haven't actually found the right person. In my experience, I don't naturally there are exceptions out there, and some people may not agree with this, but in my experience, the friends that I have who are in their 40s and are hyper successful females, they do tend to lean towards the narrative that, I wish I had a slightly balanced approach when I was a little bit younger in terms of my dating, instead of hyper focus on my career. I'm not saying that everyone thinks like that, but I do think that there's a large portion of our society which is in denial by default, because
Yes.
it's easier to be in denial and say, well, I am the, the badass, the boss, and I don't need a man, and X, Y, and Z, and fine, if that's what suits you.
Yeah.
But be true to yourself. BS and you, like yourself at least. Nobody else is, getting fooled by your, this self-proclaimed boss babe, face, because I don't think many people care. Guys don't care. Like, for anyone who is even looking to date someone who is even attracted to you, they will be turned off by the hyper masculine energy that you're bringing to the table. Because, and this is another contributing factor. When I've seen hyper successful women in their 40s, career driven and X, Y, and Z, they're very masculine. I'm not saying this is always the case, but I'm saying that that's a very large pool of hyper successful women. And the reason why that, especially if they're single, and the reason why that's happened is because they've had to be, because, in the world of like corporate banking or corporate legal work or corporate media or anything like that, you're competing, and men are generally the guys who compete. And there's nothing wrong with that, because there are a lot of beautiful things about female attributes and their behaviors which are super attractive. And competition and that driver mentality is something that's to be admired by, by a guy. So a lot of women who are in a space where they are super attracted to a male, and one of the contributing factors is the fact that he is very driven. He's very driven. He's very focused. Either he's already created something awesome, which he's working on, or he's doing something which is super attractive, and he's got a mission. He's got a purpose. That's very attractive. And that's normally a successful man's attribute, which is the hyper attractive to females.
Yes.
As a female, when you do that, there's nothing wrong with it, but you're colliding the energy, because when you are going in with hyper successful man and you're bringing that energy, the masculine energy to the table,
Clash, isn't it?
it's a clash, because the guys are not looking for a hyper successful, fully charged, bullish character. They women there to be their peace, their comfort. And then, and I would say that the more highly passionate people guys are in terms of driving their lifestyle in a direction of where they want to be, the more they are looking for people, for women who are calm, and it's their place, safe space of love and comfort.
Yes,
Absolutely. It's like the best analogy I can describe this in is that person is home to them.
Yes.
Right? You go out, you work, you have hundreds and thousands of people, sometimes employees or clients that you're dealing with, and it's a lot of stress, and it's a lot of constructive stress, right? So but it's still stressful. So when you come home, you need home, and your woman is a part of that home feeling. So home is not a place, right? It's a feeling. And whoever gives you that feeling, if you don't give your man that feeling, then that person is going to be put off. But they might never say it, because either it is not a nice thing to say, B, it's actually inconvenient to actually get into an argument with a bullish character, and C, it might be actually much better to actually just pull out, lie, and just get into a relationship with someone who's a lot more feminine.
Yeah, I totally agree, because you can still be successful without losing your femininity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a power. It's an asset.
Yeah, in my own experience, I was a housewife for so many years. I spent every day with my two children, because that's what I wanted to do. And it was just impossible for me to do my career, pay for two child cares, and then be able to work. It was just not impossible. I admire those women who do that, but it was just impossible for me. And that is like hands up, honest, situation. Then my children started growing up, and then they started going to school, and suddenly I had this time between 9 and 3 p.m. So I thought to myself, now I can do something about it. So I got myself a part-time job first, and then suddenly I started feeling that freedom again, that I belong to myself, that I can do something about myself now. And then I managed to build my own career. Recently received my latest award to be a top-rated financial advisor.
Amazing.
4 years in a row out of 5 years. And if you met me 5 years ago, I wasn't the same person as who is sitting in front of you.
Right.
And everything was done because I had that opportunity and I didn't miss it. I just used it, work hard, and that's what I have done. But if in real life now, if something were to happen, my family and my children come first.
Yeah.
Forget the career, forget the big money and success.
Yeah.
My joy is watching, my children, how they're developing and turning into, adults.
Yeah. I understand.
So that is the true beauty, and that is always my thing. When I get to speak to those successful women, I always say that there is always a chance for you to back down a bit, not to do 100 miles an hour, but you can just slow down. And sometimes it can be overpowering when you are trying to get into a relationship. When men sees that power, they get scared, and then that can actually be negative rather than positive.
Yeah, I agree with you. Getting into a relationship is only one side of the problem or table. There's another massive issue of staying in a relationship and how do you maintain a good relationship. And there's a lot of issues with that are becoming like quite profound struggles for people who have been married for a while, people who just got into a relationship, managing each other, managing that relationship, studying behaviors. And a lot of that actually, unfortunately, goes back to your behavior pattern that you actually integrated in your personality as your personality traits when you were a child. Those are becoming a very big problem. I've personally, faced this. Luckily, I learned and got better from it because it was super challenging. But at the same time, I feel like God gives you something which is difficult for you to actually learn from and actually become a better person. It's exactly like going to the gym and, breaking your muscles and getting them to be stronger and better, healthier. So I think your mind works in the same fashion where you get to do your reps and anything that's difficult in relationships to actually move on to someone where that person is much better appreciated by you, or you are much better appreciated by the other person. Sometimes, if you're lucky enough, both at the same time. I think there are things to be said about both sides. I think if I had to pick out some of the things which I see that guys are doing wrong, in my opinion, I think men don't communicate that well, which is quite obviously known because we connect with objects more. This is our biological, makeover. That's just the way we are. And women connect with people more. Therefore, even if you read some of the historic books like *Sapiens* that would explain and demonstrate this, Dr. David Buss, *Evolutionary Psychology*, phenomenal book, takes you all the way back to caveman days and really deciphers the behavior patterns. From an evolutionary standpoint, this does have quite a massive impact because when you're not able to communicate properly, that causes a distance in a relationship. So you have men who are not able to communicate because a lot of men, they simply lack either emotional intelligence or cognitively be aware of their own masking response. So what I mean is this is the second category of men that I see, even hyper successful guys, they have a lot of masks on. And this is inner work. This is something that you need to basically go to work on yourself. Even me, like up till like a couple of years ago, I had loads of masks on. And now when I'm talking about the masks that I normally see in the society, that I see in people, most men have either Mr. Alpha mask on, Mr. Stoic, Mr. Sexual, Mr. Athlete, Mr. Finance, Mr. Know-it-all, and Mr. Sexy. All of these masks, they are actually stopping you from either getting into the right relationship, or if you are already with someone, for them to really truly connect with you personally. And this does not mean that you have to basically be an emotional wreck and just sit there. Women don't want emotional guys, and that's absolutely correct, because you want to be the stone for them to come and sit on as a bird. You got to be stable. That's there's no other way of putting it.
Yeah,
But
yes.
they do want emotionally intelligent guy who is able to understand and recognize their emotional pattern, right? So I think that's one of the things that I see guys doing wrong. Second is masking, for sure. I think with women, unfortunately, there are two things. Again, I see this, and it's not nothing nice. It's a comparison. So it's a constant comparison. And I would even say that, look, if you're in a like a long-term relationship, if you're committing to that, if you're married, come off social media for sure.
Yes.
Because by default you're comparing yourself, your partner, to other people. And there's no other way. You cannot argue with biology. It's impossible. It's inevitable. And our biological makeover, our brain is designed to evaluate things, right? So we start evaluating it as soon as we wake up. We open our eyes, immediately we start evaluating. What are we judging? Ourselves, looking in the mirror. I look great. Oh my God, I look so sexy today, right? Six pack, or great body, or a great bum, whatever. Or great skin or bad skin, right? That's one example of it. But where the trouble really starts is when you're constantly evaluating other people. So your colleagues, your relationships, your parents, your siblings, your friends, people, random people on social media. That is judgment, and that's evaluation. And this is where metacognition comes in handy, because you have to evaluate your own behavior there. If you don't, then you're constantly evaluating people all the time, and that amount of judgment has two problems. One is it's very taxing. It gets you mentally and emotionally exhausted.
Yes.
And number two is you are judging everyone when there's no need to. A great book about this, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, breaks this down in a great detail, where you can observe a lot of things. You don't need to evaluate everything, because evaluation is exactly the same as judgment, but you have to cognitively actually do a lot of work to pull yourself away from evaluating things, because as I said, evolutionary psychology tells us it's our brain basically evaluating things, because it's evaluating dangers, right?
Yes.
So if you
Yes.
get onto the mountaintop and you see two mountains in front of you, one is on fire, the other one's got flowers, is green, is beautiful. Which one are you going to look at? You're going to look at the burning one. And that's a response. That's a threat response. If there's a bush that moves behind you, are you going to look at it immediately? So you're trying to evaluate, where's the tiger, or where's the saber tooth, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a biological response, but it's not healthy in today's day, because there's not always a burning mountain, there's not a dragon, and there's no lion or a tiger behind you in the bush. But the threats that are constantly being taking over our mind are small things, small micro factors. I don't look as good. Maybe I can change this. Maybe I can do that to actually look better. Those are the threats nowadays. So it might be nothing and becomes something which doesn't need to exist. So again, this is where your friends and your proximity is so handy, because if you are sharing that experience with someone who actually wants your best, sometimes you have amazing friends. I'm blessed to have a really good friend. Actually, in fact, I have a number of like three friends, I would say, two amazing, exceptional friends. I can call them and I can discuss anything, my brain traffic. And I know any problems I have, personal, business related, I can pick up the phone to these two people, and they would always, especially one of them, she would always pull me up on things that I'm not doing correctly. And that's what you want. And I do that for her, for other people, because the idea of a good friendship is that you want best for that person, even if you have to tell them something which sounds horrible to them.
Yes.
So
Telling the truth, yeah?
tell the truth, do it gently, but you have to do it, because that's the role of a good friend. If you just have a person who says, yeah, absolutely, you're totally right, and X, Y, and Z all the time, even when you've messed up, that person needs to go and never be called back, because that person is just pleasing you, and that's not helpful at all in that situation, circumstance. So I think those are some of the contributing factors. I also see, something that I also experience is the attachment styles, is how people have different attachment styles, and I think they need to match. You need to have understanding of that. And if you actually know that you have an attachment style which is actually not serving you really well in your intimate relationships as an adult, then you need to go to work, and you need to actually dig into that, and you need to also communicate that openly to your partner. Because
Yes.
if you don't communicate that to your partner, then you're
Worst thing, yeah.
saying it's not good. Because if, for example, if you're in avoidant attachment, the problem is that you're and the other person that you so avoidant attachment dates a secure person, right? They take the relationship to a certain, say, mile 1 to mile 3, absolutely phenomenal. It's like euphoric, right? And then because things get close, avoidant pulls back because things got too real, and it's scary because of some of the traumatic experiences they've had in the
Yeah.
past. Could be their parents, could be anything, right?
Yes.
And normally it's parents, absence of the parents. And as this person falls back, this secure person is like, oh, what happened? What did I do wrong? Or what happened there? But instead of confronting that 9 out of 10 times, they're trying to figure out, if they're a reflective person, what did I do wrong? What happened there? What was the situation, X, Y, and Z? And this person has no idea that this person is an avoidant, especially in the start of a relationship. But that's breaking a lot of relationships, right?
Yes.
Sometimes the guy is an avoidant. So when a girl is gone to a certain level with him, the normal perception is, oh, because he's got the goods. You know, you slept together in X, Y, and Z, and he's pulled out. That's not normally always the case. He could be an avoidant based on his past. And when things get too serious, he's pulled back, and you're like, what happened there? So I think this is where self-work is so crucial, because if I was an avoidant, I would communicate that openly to my partner to say, listen, this happened, and this is one of my personality traits. I want to communicate this to you because I want you to understand when something like this happens, it's not you.
It's me.
And what I want to do is I want to work through it with you.
Yes.
So why don't we actually set a few rules which makes you feel comfortable, and it doesn't put me out of my framework completely.
Yes.
Right? Because it's a lifetime work, like of a personality trait. So it's not going to change overnight, but it has to start moving in the right direction, because that's a very unhealthy dynamic. Because what tends to happen is, this person is avoidant attachment style. This person is secure. This person pulls back after getting to a certain beautiful, mark in their life. When this person pulls back, the secure person starts to feel anxious. Right? And that's not a nice place to be.
Yes.
Because being anxious in your relationship creates a lot of problems for the avoidant. Because what this does is, this starts to, you don't know, as a secure person, you have no idea what is going on in that relationship dynamic. When you don't know something, again, dictated by evolutionary biology and psychology, your brain is going to go towards the worst outcomes. Another person, not interested, not serious enough, looking for other people, looking for other guys, looking for other girls. I'm not good enough. I'm not good in bed. I don't smell good. All the crazy crap is going to come and try to destroy your brain, because it's the unknown. When it's the unknown, that's the worst case scenario, because someone who's secure, guy or a girl, it completely puts them in an anxious state. And now you are dealing with a very unhealthy dynamic.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to communicate whatever you are. Sometimes you're secure and then you can become anxious. Sometimes but it's very rare that you become an avoidant from being secure. The reason why is because that stems from your childhood normally. That's a very good talk to have with your partner, especially when you're getting to know someone, because that way you're able to establish where is the relationship likely to go, and what kind of things we're potentially likely to have as issues. Now, if both people are secure, you're good to go.
Yeah.
There's no issues. Sometimes also equally you can have a problem where one person is anxious and one person is secure. That can be a problem, but the normal perception is that the secure one is secure within themselves, the anxious one is insecure. That's not always the case. The anxious person could be insecure because of some of the behaviors caused by the secure person. Again, something that needs to be equally well discussed, and you need to sit down and talk about it. Look, you guys need to talk. I mean, I see couples getting into bad habits of just watching movie and eating. but don't skip on essential communication
Yes.
with your partner, because you need that. You have that. That's the glue
Yes.
alongside, obviously, intimacy. These are the things that keep you guys together. Another thing that I see wrong in relationships, and I've been guilty of this in the past, is I would get into a relationship simply because of the aesthetic appeal. And you got to be careful, because you once you take that self-control, once you say that, yeah, you know what, she's insane looking. She looks like she's just walked out of heaven, subjectively speaking, because obviously everyone has different type. Most people do. But regardless of what she looks like, what he looks like, once you take that control back to say, it doesn't matter what they look like, I'm just not feeling this person. Because I think you should, when it comes to relationships, hell yes or a hell no. Because if you're just not clicking, personality point of view, if that person is just not mentally turning you on, then then it should be a hell no. And just move on to another person that you can have a much better communication with, because you're gonna talk to this person for the rest of your life, hopefully.
Yes.
So if you have no interest, if you're a reader and they're not, if you're a growth prone person and they're not,
It's not going to work, right?
if all you talk about is holidays and cars and aesthetic treatments and gym, and your intellectual level is like 1.4 and theirs is 10, right? How is that going to work? They're going to make a lot of compromises to actually have dumb conversations, and you're going to try to, if you are willing enough, try to change yourself to kind of like have intellectual conversations, but that much difference is going to break at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you need to have some things to talk about and have some things in common, like, your habits and your vision or values or your ethics.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's not going to work, because looks fade. Whatever cars are there may not be there, because life changes,
Yeah. So again, a very like it's a very generic. I call it level one thinking in the best way possible. When a lot of people say that looks fade, and I'm totally on both. Of course, looks fade, but I would argue that looks equally matter. Otherwise, you're in this generation, you don't, they equally matter as much as other things. So I'm not saying that looks to be a priority of 10 out of 10 and everything else to be a priority number like 5 out of 10. I think you are able to go for 7 out of 10 looks and 7 out of 10 on the rest. Because then you are a lot more realistic, because you're not just led by looks. You're led by everything, but it might mean that you just have to just lower down your looks expectation a little bit, which would completely sync with the statement that you made that looks fade over time. So yes, but I also do tend to disagree with the statement, to the point that I don't think people looks fade and people become less beautiful. I think you become a different type of beautiful.
Yes.
So I know so many women who are in their 60s, who are in their 50s, and they're absolutely breathtaking. That's not because they're trying to look like a 20-year-old. That's because they carry being in their 50s incredibly well, right? So they are beautiful people. They're absolutely stunning, gorgeous to look at. But you need the right eye to recognize the beauty, right?
Yes, of course.
So I think that's one thing. And equally, I've seen loads of dudes who are complete studs and look like awesome in their late 50s, 60s, because they look after themselves. It's the lifestyle choices and everything else. So I think you become just a different type of beautiful, but it takes the right person to actually to recognize that. And this would make perfect sense when you look at someone like, one really good example is Tony Robbins. And I attended, his stuff in person, and like back in before 2020, and it was phenomenal. And naturally, I don't know his personal relationship with his wife, but from what I see, his wife Sage and him, they are both equally good looking people, and they are beautiful people for their age,
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
So that's really admiring. And he's not trying to basically look like a 20-year-old stud.
Yeah.
Neither is she trying to look like a 20-year-old girl. But it's all about how well you're suited to whatever age bracket you're in. And you will be recognized for your beauty. Other side to this is you can't age disgracefully. And the only way you're going to do that is if you're lazy. Inherently lazy. The people that I'm talking about, who I see who are beautiful in their 50s, 60s, whatever, are people who actually look after themselves, right? Now, imagine having this conversation with God. When you go upstairs, whether you believe in God or not, but just try to imagine having this crazy conversation, right? That I gave you 2 arms, 2 legs, ability to basically all your sensory working, so your eyes working, your nose working, you had no pain in your body, your mouth is working, your ears are working, and you had access, and I geographically placed you in a very nice part of the planet, and you're still a fat mess. You know, maybe I shouldn't drop the F-bomb here, the fat bomb, but the fact of the matter is, if you're incredibly unhealthy and you're aging disgracefully, yeah, of course, your partner, you don't have to age for that. You can be in your 30s and look awful,
Yes.
right? You can be in your 20s and look awful. So it's not necessarily the fact of age. It's the fact that so age is not going to make your beauty disappear. It's your behaviors that's going to take over. And that, because the statement actually stems from, from very, very long time has been said. But very, very long time ago, even from 10, 15, 20 years ago, we were aging very differently. And
Yes.
now we have a lot of tools to ourselves. We have so much biohacking. We have so much access to amazing practitioners who are giving free advice, which is absolutely incredible. How to look good, how to feel great, how to live longer. Longevity has never been better. People are living longer. Yes, some people are actually not living their best, but a lot of it does come down to your epigenetics and how you treat your body. You have to look after this body, and you do not need to spend thousands and millions of pounds doing it, right? You can just monitor yourself and just choose to be that person, to implement the right habits and structures in your lifestyle where
Yes.
you're looking after yourself so you remain beautiful for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amazing, Sam. It was such a great conversation. Thank you for coming. And
Pleasure.
I look forward for another one soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's
All
do it.
right.
All right.
Thank you.